I felt the champagne bubble in my throat as I laughed at something my fiancé said, the sound lost in the hum of our engagement party. Jett's fingers were intertwined with mine, warm and secure, as he pulled me through the crowd of well-wishers. The string lights overhead cast everyone in a golden glow that made the moment feel dreamlike. "You look stunning tonight," he whispered, his lips brushing my ear. "I'm the luckiest man alive." I smiled up at him, wondering how I'd managed to capture the heart of someone so perfect. Jett Montgomery, with his ocean blue eyes and the kind of smile that made strangers trust him instantly. My future husband. "I need to mingle a bit," I said, reluctantly pulling my hand from his. "Make sure Caroline isn't terrorizing the catering staff." "Your best friend is many things, sailor, but she's not that bad." He laughed, the sound rich and familiar. "Go. I'll find you later." I weaved through clusters of friends and family members, accepting congratulations and dodging questions about wedding dates. The venue, a renovated industrial space with exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows, had transformed into something magical under Caroline's expert direction. She'd insisted on handling the engagement party planning herself, calling it her maid of honor initiation. "There's the woman of the hour!" Miguel appeared at my side, cocktail in hand. "How does it feel to be halfway to married?" I grinned at my colleague-turned-friend. "Surreal. Good surreal." "Jett seems to be enjoying himself." Miguel nodded toward the bar where my fiancé was deep in conversation with Colin, my former mentor. "Everyone loves Jett," I said, feeling that familiar pride swell in my chest. "It's impossible not to." Miguel's expression shifted slightly. "Almost everyone. What does that mean?" "Nothing." He shook his head. "Ignore me. I'm just being cynical about love as usual." Before I could press him, my brother Royce bounded over, pulling me into a bear hug that lifted me off my feet. My big sister, getting hitched. He set me down, his face flushed with excitement or alcohol, probably both. Mum would have been so happy. The mention of our mother sent a pang through my chest. 3 years gone, and the grief still ambushed me at the most unexpected moments. "She would have loved Jett," I said softly. "Everyone loves Jett," Royce echoed my earlier sentiment, but something in his tone made me look at him more closely. "You okay?" "Yeah, of course." He glanced over my shoulder. "I should go rescue Valerie from that conversation with Dad. She looks ready to jump out the window." I turned to see my father cornering Jett's colleague, who indeed looked trapped. Valerie Bell, brilliant, intimidating, and always slightly aloof, was the only person from Jett's firm I hadn't quite connected with, despite my efforts. "Go be a hero," I told Royce, watching him stride away. I needed air. The happiness of the evening was suddenly overwhelming, like a perfume applied too liberally. I slipped through the side door onto the small balcony overlooking the city. The cool night air was a relief against my flushed skin. My phone buzzed in my clutch. Probably another congratulatory text. I'd received dozens tonight, my phone lighting up with hearts and exclamation points from friends who couldn't make it. But when I glanced at the screen, it wasn't a message of celebration. Unknown. He's not who you think he is. Check the storage closet by the restrooms. I stared at the text, my stomach clenching. A prank? A mistake? I should have deleted it immediately. Instead, I found myself moving back inside, drawn by some instinct I couldn't name. The hallway leading to the restrooms was dimly lit and empty. Music from the main room faded with each step I took. The storage closet door was slightly ajar, a sliver of light spilling onto the floor. I told myself I was being ridiculous. There was nothing to see. I would peek inside, find cleaning supplies or extra chairs, and laugh at my paranoia. I pushed the door open. Time fractured. My brain refused to process what I was seeing, even as my body reacted, heart hammering, lungs seizing. Caroline pressed against the wall, her red dress hiked up her thighs. Jett's hands tangled in her hair, his mouth on hers, hungry and familiar in a way that told me this wasn't the first time. A small sound escaped me, not quite a gasp, more like the beginning of a scream that died in my throat. They broke apart. Caroline's lipstick was smeared across her face, across Jet's mouth. Her eyes widened in horror. "Sailor," Jett said, my name sounding foreign on his lips. "This isn't—" I backed away, my engagement ring suddenly heavy and foreign on my finger. The room tilted. I turned and ran, pushing past a server, ignoring someone calling my name. My phone buzzed again in my hand as I burst through the exit doors into the night. Unknown. That's just the beginning. There's more. So much more. I don't remember how I got to the park 3 blocks from the venue. My feet carried me there on autopilot, high heels dangling from my fingers, the cool pavement numbing my bare soles. The night air bit through my thin dress, but I barely felt it. I collapsed onto a bench beneath a street lamp, my body trembling so violently I had to grip the wooden slats to stay upright. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Calls from Jett, texts from Caroline. I silenced it without looking at the messages. How many times had they been together? How long had they been laughing at me behind my back? The image of them tangled together flashed behind my eyelids every time I blinked. Caroline's fingers clutching Jett's shoulders, his hands in her hair, the way they moved together with practiced familiarity. My best friend since college. The man I'd planned to marry. The 2 people I trusted most in the world. I doubled over, a physical pain blooming in my chest as though something had ruptured. A sob tore from my throat, raw and animal. I pressed my fist against my mouth to stifle the sound. "Sela?" I jerked my head up to see Miguel standing a few feet away, his expression a mixture of concern and hesitation. "Go away," I managed, my voice barely audible. He took a step closer. "I saw you run out. I wanted to make sure you were okay." A hysterical laugh bubbled up. "Okay? I just caught my fiancé and maid of honor going at it in a storage closet at our engagement party. I'm fantastic." Miguel sat beside me, careful to leave space between us. "I'm so sorry." "Did you know?" I asked, suddenly suspicious. His earlier comment, "Almost everyone," echoed in my mind. He looked away. I had suspicions. Nothing concrete. "Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed me?" He met my gaze. "Or would you have hated me for trying to ruin your happiness?" I had no answer. He was right. I wouldn't have believed him. I'd been so completely, willfully blind. My phone buzzed again. This time I looked at the screen. "Unknown. Meet me at dusk, cafe. I have proof of more than just tonight. You deserve to know everything." "Who's that?" Miguel asked, noticing my expression change. I showed him the message and the previous one. "Someone at the party saw them too. They're the one who told me to check the closet. This feels calculated," Miguel said slowly, "like someone was waiting for this to happen." "I don't care if it was calculated. I'm glad they told me." I stood up, suddenly resolute. "I'm going to meet them." Miguel frowned. "That might not be safe. You don't know who this is or what they want." "What more could they possibly take from me?" I asked bitterly. "My life is already in pieces." "Let me come with you," he offered. "I'll stay out of sight, but I'll be there if you need me." I hesitated, then nodded. The Dusk Cafe was only a short walk away, a 24-hour place frequented by night shift workers and insomniacs. At this hour, it would be quiet enough for a private conversation. As we walked, my phone lit up with a call from Jett. I answered without thinking. "Sela, please." His voice cracked. "Let me explain. It's not what you think." "Not what I think." My voice was eerily calm. "What exactly did I misinterpret about your tongue down Caroline's throat?" "It was a mistake. A terrible mistake. Please come back so we can talk." "Where is she?" I asked. A pause. "Caroline left." "Of course she did." I laughed, the sound hollow. "Tell me, Jett. How long?" "Sela." "How long?" He exhaled shakily. "It happened once before. After the Christmas party last year. We were drunk, it was stupid." "Stop lying to me," I shouted, startling an elderly man walking his dog nearby. "I saw how you touched her. That wasn't your first time." The silence on the other end confirmed what I already knew. "Sela, I love you," he finally said. "Caroline doesn't mean anything to me." "That makes it worse," I whispered. You betrayed me for something meaningless. I hung up as we reached the cafe. Through the window, I could see only one customer, a woman sitting alone in a corner booth, her back to the door. "I'll be at the counter," Miguel said. "Just signal if you need me." I nodded, squaring my shoulders before pushing open the door. The bell jingled cheerfully, a discordant sound against my fractured reality. The woman turned as I approached, and I froze. Valerie Bell, Jett's colleague, the woman who always seemed to be watching me with thinly veiled contempt. "Hello, Sela," she said, gesturing to the seat across from her. "I was worried you wouldn't come." "You?" I slid into the booth. "You sent those messages?" She nodded, sliding her phone across the table. On the screen was a photo gallery, dozens of images. I tapped on the first one, Jett and Caroline entering a hotel. Time stamped 3 months ago. "This is just the beginning," Valerie said softly. "And Caroline isn't his only indiscretion." I looked up at her, my world tilting on its axis once again. "Why are you showing me this?" Her smile was thin, almost predatory. "Because, Selah, I think it's time you learned exactly who you were planning to marry." I stared at Valerie across the booth, my fingers hovering over her phone screen. Each swipe revealed another piece of evidence. Jett and Caroline entering different hotels on different dates, intimate dinners at restaurants across town, text message screenshots that made my stomach turn. 6 months, Valerie said, watching my face carefully. "That's how long I've been tracking them." "Why?" My voice sounded strange to my own ears, hollow and distant. "What do you get out of this?" She leaned forward. "Let's just say Jett has a pattern of using people. I was one of them." The implication hit me like a physical blow. "You and Jett?" "Last year, before your engagement," she twisted a silver ring on her finger. "He made me believe I was special, that his relationship with you was ending. Then suddenly, he's announcing your engagement and acting like I never existed." I pushed the phone away, unable to look at any more evidence of betrayal. "So this is revenge?" "This is justice," Valerie corrected. "For both of us." Miguel appeared at our table, setting down 2 cups of coffee. His presence was a silent question. "Are you okay?" I nodded slightly, and he retreated to his spot at the counter, still watching. "There's more," Valerie continued. "Caroline isn't his only side piece. There's a pattern with your friend Morgan, too." "Morgan?" I shook my head. "No, she wouldn't." Valerie shrugged. "Check her Instagram. 3 weeks ago, the earrings she's wearing? Jett bought those for me first. Then I saw them on her." My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone, navigating to Morgan's profile. There they were, distinctive teardrop emeralds I'd complimented her on. She'd claimed they were a gift from an admirer she wasn't ready to name. "This doesn't prove anything," I said. But doubt had already taken root. "There's also the business angle," Valerie said, lowering her voice. "Your family's company. Jett's been positioning himself since day one. My family's modest but successful marketing firm had been my father's life's work. After my mother died, I'd stepped in to help him run it. Jett had always shown interest, offering suggestions, introducing us to potential clients." "What are you saying?" "I found documents on his computer. Plans to restructure once he has legal claim through marriage. Your father would be pushed out within a year." The cafe seemed to tilt around me. I gripped the edge of the table. "I need proof," I managed. "I'll get it to you." Valerie gathered her things. "But don't confront him yet. He's good at covering his tracks when cornered." After she left, Miguel slid into the booth across from me. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "I think I have." I pressed my palms against my eyes. The ghost of the man I thought I was going to marry. "Do you believe her?" "I don't know what to believe anymore." I dropped my hands. "But I need to find out." Dawn found me sitting cross-legged on my living room floor, surrounded by photographs, cards, and mementos from my relationship with Jett. Things I'd once treasured now seemed like props in an elaborate performance. My phone had finally stopped buzzing around 3 a.m. 32 missed calls from Jett, 17 from Caroline, 1 from my father, probably wondering why I'd disappeared from my own engagement party. A knock at the door startled me. I peered through the peephole to see Caroline, mascara streaked down her face, still wearing her dress from last night. Against my better judgment, I opened the door. "Sella," she choked out. "Please, I need to explain." "Explain what? How to stab your best friend in the back?" My voice was ice. "Or how to fuck her fiancé behind her back for months?" She flinched. "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like, Caroline? Enlighten me." "It started as nothing, just flirting. Then after the Christmas party." She trailed off, tears spilling down her cheeks. "We tried to stop. We did stop for a while, but then—" "Save it." I cut her off. "I've seen the evidence. Hotel visits, secret dinners. This wasn't some drunken mistake. This was a calculated affair." Her eyes widened. "Evidence? What evidence? Does it matter? I saw you with my own eyes last night." Caroline stepped toward me. "Sella, I know I've destroyed your trust, but you need to be careful. Someone is playing a bigger game here. Like you care about what happens to me." I started to close the door. "I do care." She jammed her foot in the doorway. "Despite everything, you're still my best friend, and I'm worried about who's feeding you information. Worried I'll find out more of your secrets? Worried you're being manipulated?" Her expression shifted to something like fear. "Jett isn't who you think he is, but neither is whoever's turning you against everyone." I laughed bitterly. "You did that all by yourself." I forced the door closed and leaned against it, sliding down to the floor as Caroline's pleas faded. My phone buzzed with a text. "Valerie, check your email. Sent you the proof about Morgan. Also, don't trust Miguel. He's been on Jett's payroll for months. Watching you." I stared at the message, my breath catching. Miguel, who'd seemed so concerned, who'd followed me to the cafe. Another text arrived, this one from an unknown number different from before. "Unknown. Everyone around you is lying. Trust no one. I can help you make them all pay. Meet me tomorrow. Same park. Midnight." I looked around at the scattered remnants of my life, feeling suddenly, terrifyingly alone. The people I'd trusted most had betrayed me in the worst ways possible. Who was left? My hands curled into fists. If I couldn't trust anyone else, I'd have to trust myself, and the cold, hard anger growing in my chest. Sleep eluded me. I spent the day in a fog, moving between windows to check for unfamiliar cars, jumping at every notification on my phone. The walls of my apartment felt like they were closing in, each corner potentially hiding another betrayal. By afternoon, I couldn't stand it anymore. I needed answers, not more cryptic texts. I drove to my father's house, the one constant in my life. He opened the door before I could knock, worry etched into the lines around his eyes. "Sella." He pulled me into a hug. "What happened last night? Everyone was looking for you." I followed him into the kitchen, the familiar smell of coffee and his aftershave, momentarily calming my frayed nerves. "Jett and Caroline," I said simply, watching his reaction carefully. I caught them together. My father's face registered shock, then something else, a flicker of recognition that made my stomach drop. "You knew?" I whispered. He sank into a chair. I had suspicions. Nothing concrete. "Why didn't you say anything?" My voice rose. "You watched me plan an engagement party with them. What was I supposed to say? I think your fiancé looks at your best friend a little too long. You would have dismissed it." He rubbed his face. I hoped I was wrong. I paced the kitchen. "There's more. Valerie, Jett's colleague, she says he's been planning to use our marriage to take over the company, push you out." My father's expression hardened. "That, I believe. He's been asking questions, suggesting changes that would consolidate power." "And you still said nothing?" Betrayal burned fresh. "I was handling it, Sella. I didn't want to come between you and the man you loved without concrete proof." "Well, I have proof now." I pulled out my phone, showing him the emails Valerie had sent, documents from Jett's computer outlining a restructuring plan that would gradually eliminate my father's role. He studied them, his face growing grimmer. "These look authentic. But how did she get them? Does it matter? They confirm what you already suspected. My father looked up at me. Be careful, Sella. This feels orchestrated. Someone is feeding you exactly what you need to turn against everyone in your life. Or maybe they're finally showing me the truth. Everyone else was too afraid to tell me. His phone rang. A client emergency. As he took the call, I wandered to his home office, drawn by a need to find more answers. His computer was unlocked. I hesitated only briefly before searching for Jett's name in his emails. Several threads appeared, including one from 3 days ago with the subject line, "Concerns about Jett's proposal." I clicked it open. Colin. I've reviewed Jett's business proposal. While innovative, I share your concerns about the restructuring timeline. It effectively removes you from decision-making within 18 months. I suggest we discuss this privately before the engagement party. Perhaps there's a compromise that protects your legacy while allowing for growth. Regards. Morgan. My breath caught. Morgan knew about Jett's plans, and she was helping my father counter them. I quickly searched for more emails between them. There were dozens, stretching back months, all professional, all focused on protecting the company from what they clearly saw as Jett's takeover attempt. A text message appeared on my phone. Valerie, did you confront Morgan yet? Don't let her manipulate you. I stared at it, doubt creeping in. If Morgan had been helping my father against Jett, why would Valerie push me to confront her? I heard my father ending his call and quickly closed the email, returning to the kitchen. Dad, do you trust Morgan? I asked casually. He looked surprised. Completely. She's been invaluable these past few months, especially with... He trailed off. With Jett's plans, I finished. She's been helping you counter them. He nodded slowly. How did you know? I need to go, I said, ignoring his question. I have something to take care of. The park was empty when I arrived at midnight, the same bench where I'd collapsed after discovering Jett and Caroline now illuminated by a single street lamp. I sat, pulling my jacket tighter against the chill. I wasn't sure you'd come. I turned to see Colin stepping out of the shadows, my father's friend, my former mentor. You sent the anonymous text, I said, pieces clicking into place. He nodded, sitting beside me. I've been watching Jett for months. I knew what he was planning for your father's company. Why not tell me directly? Would you have believed me? Or would you have defended him? His voice was gentle but firm. You needed to see for yourself. Did you know about Caroline too? I suspected. But that night at the party, I saw them slip away together. I followed, took the photo through the door crack, and sent you the message. He looked away. I'm sorry for the pain it caused, but you deserved the truth. What about Valerie? She's been sending me evidence too. Colin's expression darkened. Valerie is not your ally, Sella. She and Jett had a relationship, yes, but it ended because she wanted more control in his business dealings than he was willing to give. Now she's using you. Using me how? To destabilize everything around Jett, including your father's company. If everyone is fighting each other, she can step in with her own proposal. He pulled out a folder. These are documents from her computer. Her own takeover plan. I took the folder with trembling hands. How do I know who to trust anymore? Trust the evidence, not the messenger, Colin said. And remember who was in your life before all this began. As I opened the folder, my phone buzzed with a text from Valerie. Valerie, don't meet with Colin. He's working with Jett. Always has been. I looked up at Colin, who was watching me intently. Interesting timing, I said, showing him the message. His smile was sad. She's good. I'll give her that. So, is everyone just using me as a pawn in some elaborate game? My voice cracked. Not everyone, Colin said quietly. But now you have a choice. You can keep being manipulated, or you can start playing the game yourself. Colin's words echoed in my mind as I drove home. Start playing the game yourself. The idea was both terrifying and exhilarating, taking control instead of being controlled. I spent the night analysing everything I'd learned, creating a map of connections and motivations on my living room wall. By dawn, patterns emerged. Jett at the center with Caroline, Valerie, and possibly Miguel orbiting him. My father and Morgan working together against Jett's business plans. Colin somewhere in between, his true allegiance still unclear. The only person I hadn't accounted for was my brother. I called Royce asking him to meet me for breakfast at a cafe far from our usual spots. When he arrived, his eyes widened at my appearance. Unwashed hair, dark circles, clothes I'd worn for 2 days straight. "Holy shit, Seller." He slid into the booth across from me. "You look like my life exploded." "Yeah, I know." I pushed a coffee toward him. "I need to ask you something, and I need complete honesty." His expression sobered. "This about Jett and Caroline?" "You knew?" The betrayal felt fresh again. "Not new. Suspected." He fidgeted with a sugar packet. "I saw them once at a bar downtown. They didn't see me. They were close. Could have been innocent, but it didn't feel that way." "Why didn't you tell me?" "I was going to, but then—" He looked away. Jett came to me the next day with a job offer, said he'd been impressed with my portfolio and wanted me on his team. My stomach dropped. "You took a job from him to stay quiet?" "It wasn't like that," Royce protested. "I thought maybe I'd misinterpreted what I saw. And the opportunity was huge, Seller. You know how hard I've been trying to break into corporate design. So my fiancé bought your silence with a job." My voice was flat. "When you put it that way." He ran a hand through his hair. "I fucked up, didn't I?" "Join the club," I sighed. "Everyone around me has been playing some angle I couldn't see." "Not everyone," Royce said quietly. "Morgan's been solid. She actually warned me about getting too close to Jett professionally." Another point for Morgan. The evidence was mounting that Valerie had been trying to turn me against one of the few people actually looking out for me. "I need your help," I said, leaning forward. "I'm done being manipulated. I want to turn the tables." Royce's eyes lit up with that familiar mischievous spark. "What did you have in mind?" The Freeman marketing offices were quiet when I arrived. Most employees were at an off-site meeting, a convenient absence I'd confirmed before coming. I needed to speak with Morgan alone. I found her in the conference room, spreadsheets spread across the table, her forehead creased in concentration. "Working through lunch again?" I asked from the doorway. She jumped, then smiled when she saw me. "C'est là. I've been trying to reach you." Her smile faded as she took in my appearance. "Are you okay?" "Not really." I closed the door behind me. "I know about Jett's plans for the company, and I know you've been helping my dad counter them." Morgan's shoulders sagged slightly. "He told you?" "No. I found out on my own." I sat across from her. "What I don't understand is why you didn't tell me." "Your father asked me not to. He wanted to protect you." She gathered her papers nervously. "And honestly, I was afraid you wouldn't believe me. You were so in love." "I thought I was." I studied her face. "There's something else you should know. Valerie has been feeding me information trying to turn me against you." Morgan's expression hardened. "That doesn't surprise me. She's been angling for a partnership position for months. Your father blocked it because he didn't trust her judgment." "She told me you were involved with Jett. Showed me photos of you wearing earrings he supposedly gave you. These." Morgan touched the emerald teardrops at her ears. "My mother gave me these for my 30th birthday. I've never received so much as a coffee from Jett." Another lie exposed. I felt a surge of anger toward Valerie, followed by determination. "I need your help," I said. "I'm putting together a plan to expose everyone involved in this mess. But I can't do it alone." Morgan leaned forward. "What do you need?" "Access to the company servers. And your silence." She didn't hesitate. "You have both." As she wrote down her login credentials, my phone buzzed with a text from Jett. "Jett, I know you're at the office. We need to talk. I'm on my way. Please wait for me." I showed Morgan the message. "How would he know I'm here?" Her eyes widened. "The security system. He insisted on installing it himself last year. Said it was a gift to your father. It sends alerts when certain key cards are used." "Like mine," I realized. "He's been tracking my movements." "What do you want to do?" Morgan asked. We could leave before he gets here. I thought about running, about avoiding the confrontation. Then I remembered Colin's words about playing the game myself. No, I said, a strange calm settling over me. I want to see him, but first I need you to call my father and Royce. Tell them to come immediately, but enter through the back. And then I need you to pull up every file related to Jett's business proposals. What are you planning? I met her gaze steadily. I'm going to give Jett exactly what he wants, a private meeting where I appear vulnerable and alone. Except this time, I'll be recording everything. Morgan's expression shifted from concern to admiration. You're not just exposing him, you're setting a trap. Yes, I said, feeling a surge of power I'd never experienced before, and he's walking right into it. Morgan worked quickly, setting up a recording app on my phone and laptop while I positioned myself at the head of the conference table. We arranged the documents strategically, Jett's takeover plans visible but not obviously displayed. He's here, Morgan whispered, glancing at the security feed on her tablet. Your father and Royce just arrived too. They're in your dad's office. Perfect. I smoothed my hair, wishing I'd taken time to look less desperate. But maybe this worked better. Jett would expect me to be falling apart. I'll be right next door if you need me. Morgan squeezed my shoulder before slipping out the back entrance. Moments later, I heard Jett's confident stride in the hallway. He appeared in the doorway, impeccably dressed as always, though the shadows under his eyes suggested he hadn't slept much either. Selah. My name on his lips made my skin crawl. Thank you for waiting. What do you want, Jett? I kept my voice flat, emotionless. He closed the door and approached slowly like I was a wounded animal that might bolt. To explain, what you saw with Caroline was just the tip of the iceberg, I finished for him. Save it. I know everything. You don't know anything, he said, his tone shifting from contrite to dismissive so quickly it gave me whiplash. You're upset and confused. I'm actually seeing clearly for the first time. I gestured to the chair across from me. Sit down. Surprise flickered across his face at my commanding tone, but he complied. I found your restructuring plans, I said, tapping the folder between us. The ones where you pushed my father out 18 months after our wedding. Jett's expression remained carefully neutral. Those are just business proposals, Selah. Your father's company needs modernization. You know that. What I know is that you've been lying to me about everything. I leaned forward. Caroline, the business. Probably more I haven't discovered yet. Is that what Valerie told you? He laughed softly. You can't trust her. She's been trying to undermine me for months. That's funny because she said the same thing about you. And you believe her over me? Your fiancé? Ex-fiancé, I corrected. And I don't trust anyone right now. Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. Including your father? Because he knew about Caroline and me. He caught us months ago. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. You're lying. Ask him yourself. Jett's smile was cruel. He agreed to keep quiet if I adjusted my business proposals to give him more control. Your father sold your happiness for business leverage, Selah. My hands trembled beneath the table. Was this another manipulation, or the truth? I couldn't tell anymore. Even if that's true, I said carefully, it doesn't excuse what you did. I never claimed to be perfect. He softened his voice, reaching for my hand. But I do love you, Selah. Caroline was a mistake, a stupid, meaningless mistake. I pulled my hand away. And Valerie? Was she a mistake too? His jaw tightened. Valerie is a liar. Whatever she told you. She showed me hotel receipts, Jett. Date-stamped photos, text messages. Fabricated, he snapped. She's obsessed with me. Has been since we briefly dated last year. What about Morgan? Is she obsessed with you too? Confusion crossed his face. Morgan. What does she have to do with this? I watched him carefully. His reactions seemed genuine. Perhaps Valerie had lied about that connection too. Nothing, I said. Just another name on a growing list of people you've manipulated. I haven't manipulated anyone. He stood abruptly. I came here to salvage our relationship, but clearly you've made up your mind. Sit down. My voice was steel. We're not finished. To my surprise, he obeyed, though anger radiated from him. I want you to admit what you've done, I said. All of it. The affairs, the business scheme, everything. Or what? His laugh was cold. You'll tell your father? He already knows? Your friends? They'll believe whatever version makes the better story. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. Face it, Seller. You have nothing. No leverage. No proof. Just the word of a woman scorned against a man everyone trusts and respects. The door opened behind him. My father stood there, his expression grim, with Royce and Morgan flanking him. We have everything we need, my father said quietly. Jett spun around, his face draining of colour. Colin, what are you doing here? I hadn't noticed Colin standing in the shadows of the hallway. He stepped forward, holding up his phone. Recording your confession, or what would have been if you weren't so arrogant? You set me up, Jett said, turning back to me with newfound respect in his eyes. I underestimated you. Everyone did, I replied. Jett's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and something in his expression changed. This isn't over, Seller. It is for me, I said, removing my engagement ring and placing it on the table. We're done. As my father escorted Jett out, I caught a glimpse of his phone screen, a text from Valerie. They know everything. Initiate Plan B, tonight. Colin noticed it too. We need to move quickly, he said once Jett was gone. Whatever Plan B is, it can't be good. What do we do? Royce asked. We beat them at their own game, I said, a plan forming in my mind. The anniversary party at Valerie's tonight. We'll be there. That's too dangerous, my father protested. It's the perfect opportunity, I insisted. They'll be planning their next move, thinking I'm at home, licking my wounds. They won't expect me to show up with evidence ready to expose them both. Morgan looked concerned. What if this is exactly what they want? To lure you somewhere they control? I met her gaze steadily. Then we'll be ready for that too. Valerie's penthouse gleamed with tasteful opulence, all sleek surfaces and strategic lighting that made everyone look more attractive than they were. I stood in the elevator, my heart hammering against my ribs as we ascended to the top floor. Morgan squeezed my hand. You don't have to do this, she whispered. I checked my reflection in the mirrored wall. The woman staring back barely resembled the Selar from a week ago. I'd traded vulnerability for armour. A black dress that felt like a declaration of war, hair pulled back severely, makeup precise and unforgiving. Yes, I do. I touched the small recording device concealed in my clutch. They don't get to win. The elevator doors opened directly into the party. Dozens of people from Jett's firm mingled with cocktails, their laughter a jarring counterpoint to the tension coiled inside me. Colin and Royce had entered separately and were already positioned at strategic points around the room. There's Valerie, Morgan murmured, nodding toward our hostess. Valerie stood near the windows, resplendent in emerald silk that caught the light as she moved. When she spotted me, her composure faltered for just a second, a micro-expression of shock quickly masked by a practiced smile. She glided over. Seller, what a surprise. I didn't expect to see you tonight. Clearly, I said, accepting a champagne flute from a passing server. But I couldn't miss your anniversary party. 5 years at the firm is quite an achievement. Yes. Well. Her eyes darted around, obviously looking for Jett. I'm glad you could make it, though given recent events, I thought you might want some privacy. Recent events? I raised an eyebrow. You mean discovering my fiancé's betrayal through evidence you provided? Why would that keep me away from celebrating with the woman who opened my eyes? Confusion flickered across her face. She hadn't expected gratitude. I only wanted to help, she said carefully. And you did, more than you know. I sipped my champagne. Is Jett here? I'd love to congratulate him on his promotion. Promotion? Oh, didn't he tell you? After our little meeting today, my father was so impressed with Jett's business acumen that he's considering a special position for him. I leaned closer. Very special. Very isolated. Valerie's smile tightened. "Excuse me, I need to check on something." As she hurried away, Morgan whispered, "She's texting someone. Probably Jett." "Good." I scanned the room. "Where's Caroline?" "By the bar. She hasn't seen you yet." I spotted my former best friend, laughing with a group I didn't recognize. The sight of her, so carefree after destroying my life, sent a surge of rage through me that I quickly tamped down. Emotion was a luxury I couldn't afford tonight. "I'm going to mingle," I told Morgan. "Stay close to Valerie. Text me if she tries to leave." I moved through the crowd, accepting condolences from people who'd heard about my broken engagement, deflecting questions with vague responses. All the while I was watching, waiting for Jett to arrive. He didn't disappoint. The shift in energy was palpable when he entered, heads turning, conversations pausing. He looked immaculate as always, but there was a tightness around his eyes that hadn't been there before. Our gazes locked across the room. I raised my glass in a mock toast and his eyes narrowed. He made his way to Valerie, bending to whisper something in her ear. She nodded, then both looked in my direction. My phone buzzed with a text from Colin. "They're moving to the study. Now's your chance." I set down my glass and followed, staying just far enough behind to remain unnoticed. The hallway leading to Valerie's study was dimly lit and empty of other guests. I pressed myself against the wall beside the partially open door, straining to hear their conversation. "I can't believe she's here," Valerie was saying. "This complicates everything." "It changes nothing," Jett replied. "We proceed as planned. The documents are ready?" "Yes, but—" "No buts. By Monday, Freeman Marketing will be in chaos. Colin's evidence means nothing without context, and we control the context." My blood ran cold. Whatever they were planning would destroy my father's company, the legacy my mother had helped build. "What about Sella?" Valerie asked. "She's not as naive as you thought." Jett's laugh was dismissive. "She's emotional and reactive. Predictable. We can use that." Something snapped inside me. I pushed the door open and stepped into the study. "Predict this," I said. They spun toward me, shock evident on both faces. "Sella." Jett recovered first. "Eavesdropping isn't very becoming. Neither is conspiracy." I moved further into the room. "What documents are you planning to use against my father?" Valerie glanced at Jett, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. "Nothing that isn't true," she said smoothly. "Just evidence of some accounting irregularities we discovered. Anonymous whistleblower material." "Fabricated material," I corrected. "Prove it," Jett challenged, his confidence returning. "It's your word against ours. And after your public meltdown this week, who do you think people will believe?" I smiled, the expression feeling foreign on my face. "That's the thing about being underestimated. People get careless around you." I opened my clutch and removed the recording device. They say things they shouldn't. The colour drained from Jett's face. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" I pressed play, and his voice filled the room. "By Monday, Freeman Marketing will be in chaos. Colin's evidence means nothing without context, and we control the context." Valerie moved toward me. "Give me that." I wouldn't. Colin appeared in the doorway with Royce and Morgan behind him. "The police are very interested in corporate espionage and fabricated evidence." "You called the police?" Jett's voice rose in disbelief. "No," I said quietly. "But I did invite some key board members and clients who might be interested in hearing about your plans." I gestured to the hallway, where several distinguished figures now stood, their expressions grim. Jett lunged for me, his composure finally shattering. "You vindictive bitch!" I didn't flinch. Better than a naive one. As security led them away, Caroline appeared in the doorway, her face pale. "Sella, I held up my hand. "Save it. We're done." The room emptied until only my allies remained. Royce wrapped an arm around my shoulders. "You did it." But victory felt hollow, the adrenaline fading to leave me empty and exhausted. I'd exposed their plot, protected my father's company, but at what cost? My fiancé, my best friend, my trust in people. All gone. "What now?" Morgan asked softly. I looked at the recording device in my hand, the small object that had captured the final nail in the coffin of my old life. Now, I said, I start over. The morning after Valerie's party, I sat alone on my balcony, watching the sunrise paint the city in shades of gold and pink. My phone had been silent for hours. No desperate texts, no manipulative pleas. The quiet felt strange after days of chaos. A knock at my door broke the stillness. I considered ignoring it, but something pulled me to my feet. Miguel stood in the hallway, hands shoved in his pockets, expression uncertain. "Can I come in?" he asked. I hesitated, then stepped aside. "Depends on what you're here for." He entered cautiously, like someone approaching a wounded animal. "I heard what happened last night. It's all over the firm." News travels fast. I closed the door but remained standing, arms crossed. "What's your angle, Miguel? Valerie said you were on Jett's payroll." "I was," he admitted, meeting my gaze directly. "But not how you think." "Enlighten me." He sank onto my couch. "Jett hired me to keep an eye on you, yes, but I was already watching him for Colin." I blinked, trying to process this. "You were a double agent." "Triple, technically." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "I was also reporting to your father." "My father knew?" I sat across from him, stunned. "For how long?" "Since before your engagement. Colin suspected Jett's intentions toward the company weren't pure. Your father asked me to get close to you, gain Jett's trust, and report back." The revelation should have angered me, another person using me as a pawn. But instead, I felt a strange relief. Someone had been looking out for me, even if I hadn't known it. "Why tell me now?" "Because you deserve the whole truth." Miguel leaned forward. "And because I'm done with secrets." Before I could respond, my phone rang. "Colin." "C'est là," he said when I answered. "We need to talk. I'm downstairs." Minutes later, Colin sat beside Miguel in my living room, looking exhausted but satisfied. "The board voted unanimously this morning," he said. "Jett and Valerie are out. Permanently." "That was fast," I remarked. "Your evidence was compelling, and they had more enemies than friends." Colin hesitated. "There's something else you should know. About Caroline." My chest tightened at her name. "What about her?" "She came to me 3 weeks ago with concerns about Jett. Said he'd been pressuring her for information about your family, about the company. She was trying to distance herself from him." "So why was she with him at our engagement party?" I demanded. "She claims he threatened to expose their affair to you in a way that would make her look like the instigator. She went to talk to him, to beg him to leave her alone." Colin shrugged. "Whether you believe that is up to you." I didn't know what to believe anymore. The Caroline I thought I knew would never betray me. But then, I'd been wrong about so many people. "It doesn't change what she did," I said finally. "No," Colin agreed. "But understanding why people betray us can help us move forward." The three of us sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything that had happened settling around us. "What now?" Miguel asked, echoing Morgan's question from the night before. I stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city I'd lived in my entire life. For the first time in days, I felt something other than anger or pain, a flicker of possibility. "I'm going to rebuild," I said. "Not just pick up the pieces, but create something new." "The company?" Colin asked. "That too." I turned to face them. "My father's stepping back. He offered me the position of CEO this morning." Miguel's eyebrows shot up. "That's a big step." "It is," I agreed. "But I'm ready. I see things clearly now. Who can be trusted, who can't? What matters, what doesn't?" "And what matters?" Colin asked softly. "Integrity, truth, building something that can't be destroyed by betrayal." I felt stronger with each word. I spent years thinking love was the most important thing. Now I know it's trust, in yourself first, then in others who earn it. A text message lit up my phone from Caroline. "I know you hate me, but when you're ready to hear the full truth, I'll be waiting." I set the phone down without responding. Maybe someday I'd be ready to hear her side. Maybe not. The choice was mine now. I have a board meeting to prepare for, I told them, straightening my shoulders, and a company to rebuild. As they left, Miguel paused at the door. For what it's worth, I never lied about one thing. I always believed in you, Sella, even when you didn't believe in yourself. After they were gone, I returned to my balcony. The city stretched before me, full of people living their lives, making choices, breaking and mending relationships. Somewhere out there, Jett and Valerie were facing the consequences of their actions. Caroline was waiting for forgiveness I wasn't ready to give, and I was here standing on the edge of something new. The betrayal that had shattered my world hadn't destroyed me. It had revealed me. Beneath the naive trust and desperate need for love was something stronger. A woman who could face deception and emerge clearer, sharper, more herself. I took a deep breath of morning air, feeling it fill my lungs with possibility. The pain wasn't gone, but it had transformed into something useful. A radar for lies, an appreciation for truth, a foundation for whatever came next. I didn't need to be loved by everyone anymore. I just needed to be whole within myself. And for the first time in my life, I was